Hello, welcome to Nerdist Book Club live on Nerdist and Geek and Sundry's YouTube, as well as Geek and Sundry's Twitch. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us, no matter where you're coming from. I'm Rachel Heine, and joining me, as always, are my longtime book club co-hosts and dear friends who I love talking to, Maude, Garrett, and Hector Navarro.
Oh, I can do that too.
Woo! Woo!
Oh my God.
Yeah, guys, I'm so ready for this. I'm in a mood.
I know. I'm ready for wine. I'm ready for Star Wars. I'm ready to talk about books. We are, if you are looking at these and wondering what they are, this is Nerdist Book Club. It's a book club where we talk about books and drink wine with you at home, either live, hopefully, if you're joining us. But if you can't make it at a specific time, you're somewhere else in the world, you've got a job, you're doing other things. That's okay.
Maybe they're like 19 parsecs away. You just don't know.
Exactly.
Oh no.
No. It's begun.
This whole episode's going to be Maude Star Wars puns, isn't it?
Oh, it's
never tell me the odds. 100%.
I cannot wait. I'm so excited about the book we're reading. We were formerly known as Alpha Book Club. For anyone who has followed us from ye old days of Alpha Book Club, we're so glad that you're here, and that's what these wine glasses are. But thank you for joining us, no matter how you found out about us. If you just realized that Nerdist was reading a Star Wars book and you've never seen our show before, welcome. We drink wine, we make puns, we get into some spirited debates, we go on tangents, and we love to hear from you. So let us know what you're thinking of the book so far.
And we love each other. And we love each other.
We love each other like so. We text all the time, and y'all are my rocks. This is still, I said it 4 years ago, whatever, 4 years ago. Wednesdays are still my favorite day of the week because it's book club day, and now we're talking about Star Wars. We've previously done a Star Wars book way back in the day. We did one of the Thrawn books, but right now we're reading Bloodline by Claudia Gray. It's a Leia-focused book that takes place 6 years before the events of Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens. And I'm just so excited. We're going to dive into this book. First off, Hector, I know you have a physical copy, so you're reading the book.
That's right, baby.
Dude, what an oversight. Put it down, get Audible immediately.
Yeah,
it is so good on Audible.
No.
It is so good.
Or in it.
Listen, I'm sure that it's amazing, but the oversight here is anybody who's not reading the book whilst listening to the specific playlist that I put together. That's the oversight. I am listening to on my iPod, the scores for episodes 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and I'll eventually add 9. Everything in the Skywalker saga that Leia was involved in, not including Rogue One, doesn't count. And that shit's on shuffle. So as I'm reading it, I'll all of a sudden get a little taste of Return of the Jedi. Then I bounce over to A New Hope. Then I go over to Force Awakens.
Correlating to the words, so
Maude,
you can hear really sincere moments and have battle music, and then during the battle music,
Leia and Han score, and it's so beautiful and breaks my.
And they have sound effects that assist and aid what's happening in the book.
Sometimes it does correlate perfectly. Trust. It's amazing.
The magic of your playlist, and I demand a link to it after this. Respectfully. But Maude, if I had not been an audiobook convert, thanks to you many moons ago, this would do it. We were talking about it before the show. It just made me like, oh, stop. Because I know a lot of people have had mixed feelings about new Star Wars or just talking about Star Wars online. Personally, I just stopped doing it for a while.
It's not fun anymore.
Yep.
And
men ruined it. Men ruined everything.
It's not fun at all. But listening to the score and getting more Leia, can always take more Leia, has just been like, it just feels like comfort book. It's just it's comfort book, and I'm really excited that we are diving into this. So
and the Leia narrator is actually really good. And if you want me to do, do the back of the book. I'll try and do it in.
I would love for you to. I had to look her up because she's read like 15 thrillers that I've listened to. I was like, I know this voice.
Oh, that's cool.
She plays with, she's great. But yes, please, since there is more often than not an opening crawl for Star Wars, Maude, would you do the honors of reading the back of the book crawl?
Alrighty. When the rebellion defeated the Empire at Endor, Leia Organa or Organa? What is that one, you think?
Organa.
Thank you. When the rebellion defeated the Empire at Endor, Leia Organa believed lasting peace was at hand, a hope that now seems all but doomed. In her new role as senator, Leia must grapple with numerous threats to the fledgling democracy, from underworld, kingpin, treacherous politicians, and imperial loyalists to vicious partisan battles within the New Republic itself. Now the Senate desperately seeks a strong political leader to heal the divided galaxy. But as the daughter of Darth Vader, Leia is wary of a single person wielding so much power, including herself. Yet it may be her only option, for at the edges of the galaxy, a mysterious threat is growing.
That sounded great.
Hey, that was so good, and you sound just like her.
Hey,
Really,
I can hear it, but the words with R's, I'm like, I've never said them my whole life. Why would I start now?
June.
Hey, June.
That's not.
Star Wars.
Sorry, that was one take. Can't do it. So Claudia Gray. I want to talk a little bit before we dive into the book about our Star Wars reading experiences, comics and books. But Claudia Gray is an author who's been recommended to me by, I'm pretty sure, Maude, you've recommended Lost Stars, Amy Ratcliffe, Star Wars expert, Star Wars author, and Nerdist managing editor and great friend. And as soon as I started reading this section, I messaged Amy at work and was like, I need more recommendations for after this immediately. And she said, Claudia Gray, just more Claudia Gray. She's amazing. So she's a New Orleans-based romance, YA, and paranormal author. So now I also want to read her non-Star Wars stuff. Claudia Gray is her pseudonym. She claimed she thought it would be fun to choose her own name and then confirmed it was indeed fun.
Good for her.
I would like to choose my own name.
Yeah, what would be your pseudonym? If I was an author, it would probably be something like Reed Booker. Sorry.
Really good. Mine would be something very like New Orleans actually makes me think it would be like, like Chloe or Raven, like Dubois or like something.
Whoa. Raven Dubois.
Mysterious in French.
Desplat.
Yeah, Desplat. Hector, what about you?
I don't know. It's hard to. I'm really attached to the name Hector, actually, like very attached. I think it's perfect for me. I really like it. I don't know. That would be tough.
All right, I have a better question. Can you picture or can you demonstrate General Grievous saying your name?
Yes, I'll try. Hector Navarro.
Hector.
Yeah. Something like that.
Oh, guys, I'm just talking about Star Wars.
I know. This is something we haven't even gotten.
Yeah.
It's so good. And it's been, I think Star Wars has always been a contentious subject amongst fans.
It's annoying.
Especially on the internet, and especially for the new movies.
Yeah.
And I think it's been hard for a lot of people who are, at least for me, speaking for me, loved the movies growing up, knew every word. My best friend from high school, who I'm still very good friends with to this day, Alex, lent me all of his Legends books when we were in high school, and read a bunch of those.
I never did Legends. I saw them. I remember seeing them in the library and in the bookshop and being like, I really want to get into this. But then, like, my same kind of apprehension that I have getting into comic books, I never know if the book that I'm picking up is the first in the series, if it's fourth down, what the best entry place is, which one was the first one. That kind of numerology got me a little bit intimidated.
Totally.
I was in the same boat, and a couple of years ago, I found this book. I think they put it out like 2012 or 2014 or something, where Pablo Hidalgo wrote it. He's a big Star Wars writer and like historian and
the
genius.
King of Canon.
King of Canon. He put together this book that was it's a Star Wars reader's guide. And if you're watching this right now and you don't know about this, I highly recommend it. I mean, even when like Nerdist was posting about this book, people were commenting about, oh, this is canon, this is new canon, having that conversation. And one woman was like, what is canon? I don't know what this is. And I had to explain really briefly in a couple of tweets. I'm like, well, this is what it is. This is what it was.
You can actually refer to my canon video that I did on SourceFed Nerd, where I spent 4, 5, 7 minutes talking about what Star Wars canon is and why.
It's intimidating. It's this big thing. I'm exactly like you, Maude. I've always been very intimidated by it. So then Pablo Hidalgo puts this book out. Star Wars Lucasfilm put this book out a couple years ago that was the reader's guide, where it went through and in the timeline order, not necessarily by order of publication, but it tells you when they were published. It is an amazing book. I have it. I can lend it to y'all, but it gives you a summary. Yes. And like Yoda's on the cover, and it gives you a summary of every single Star Wars. What's that?
Are they still canon now though? Because a lot of them.
But no, they're not. But at the beginning of the book, it's specifically about all the books that were published before the Lucasfilm Disney merger or purchase.
I had Alex. The only reason I could do it was because Alex, who's
right. So for those of us who
this is my project, this is the next one you read, and I was like, great, thank you.
So for those of us that didn't have an Alex, and for those of us who don't necessarily want to do like a Wikipedia deep dive, this book that I read cover to cover gives you every book and a summary of the book and a special note about the book. If it's like, oh, this was published, in this way and da-da-da-da. Even little articles and stories that were written for Star Wars Insider magazine are summarized in this book. And I went from cover to cover and I just wrote down every book that I thought would be interesting. None of them are technically canon now, but at the beginning of this reader's guide, Pablo Hidalgo, he lays out how, like, even back then, the idea of canon was like, look, Lucasfilm is publishing these books, but if they ever decide to do a movie again, this was before the prequels, and if they ever decide to do anything else again, George Lucas and whatever he wants to do will supersede anything we've come up with. So this will very likely be contradicted. It doesn't matter. The important thing is whatever George Lucas wants to do. So when things got purchased by Disney, and Disney set out to be like, the rest of the novels technically no longer count. Now we're going to put them in print because we want to make money off of them, and we know that there are fans of them and we think they're great. But going forward now, every book that we publish, every comic book that we publish, every video game, everything that we do is going to be officially considered canon. I thought that was amazing. And people who complained that they got rid of, people who complained that they got rid of the old canon, I'm like, technically, guys, that old stuff was also contradicted as soon as George Lucas started doing the prequels. He introduced ideas.
It got very convoluted. And if people really want it to be like that, guess what? Chewie died by a moon landing on him.
Come on.
Happy for that to not be canon.
Well, also, I think the thing that confused me getting back into trying to, every time I've thought about it, which is many times, is that then some of the elements of Legends, I think it's called now. Expanded Universe, have come back into canon. Yeah. Like, we read Thrawn on our old book club, and I was like, wait, if that's, because I loved the original Timothy Zahn Thrawn books. Mm-hmm. Don't remember all of them, but and so I get overwhelmed. But I love having a guidepost, and especially now that the movies, at least for now, and the Skywalker saga is sort of self-contained, it feels a lot more manageable. Mm-hmm. I'm just gonna turn my air on really quick.
Okay.
What?
But I think,
I just posted my What is Canon video in the chat just then. And I realized it's coming up to its 5th year anniversary. I got 137,000 views. And I'm too scared to do this, but I'm going to say, what's the newest comment? Oh, okay. That's not so bad. I was waiting for it.
Maude, get out of there. Get out of there, Maude. It's a trap.
Comments. Only book club comments are safe.
It's a trap, Maude.
Sometimes not even that.
Oh. I want to get all my Akbar toys.
Go get him. Go get an Akbar toy. What are you doing? Go get an Akbar toy.
We have other shows. I'll do it. I already stood up once. No, I think, but coming back to this particular book, oh, she's beautiful.
Leia, Bobby.
Oh, that's nice.
That's all.
No, I'll wait. I'll do it next time. I can contain myself. But I think this is sort of what I would like to see from the Star Wars. And I think The Mandalorian does a great job of this as well. But this book so far, what we've read, which we'll get into, I promise, is what I would like to see from Star Wars in the future is different genres and slice of life and political intrigue or, character driven stories, which I think The Mandalorian definitely counts, but this as well, getting to be in the life of a beloved character at a time when we haven't seen her before, at least in the films. And
I'm gonna one up you there.
I missed her, and I missed I miss Carrie obviously every day.
Yeah.
Fisher, and so, but I think the characterization of Leia in this as someone who is so smart and a little dry, doesn't really want to deal with, protocol, but also really stubborn and isn't necessarily doing the right thing and working in a team and has to kind of learn from her own mistakes and her own.
She wants to retire.
I loved it. I was like, you're not always right, but you think you are, and so does Han, and you guys I love the characterization of her in this. So we can dive into it, but what do you think, Maude?
I have a question. I love delving back into Leia and fleshing her out a lot more because it was not necessarily one-dimensional in the original trilogies because she was very assertive, but then was made a love interest. But I would like to pose to chat and to everyone here, have you ever read a sci-fi or fantasy book from the perspective of a woman in her late 40s or even in her 40s?
That's a great point. That is an excellent point.
That was a point of view for me.
Yeah.
I was like, I haven't read this before.
And she's still with Han, which I'm also fascinated by, just like how
their marriage works. He dropped the ball.
When did it fall?
I have a theory because none of you guys have read Bloodline before, right? All three of us have never read it?
Yeah.
Okay. I have a theory, and I don't know how
they're having an affair. And
Maude, never. They're Disney characters. No, my theory is I'm not sure how tapped into the making and writing of like The Force Awakens or beyond Claudia Gray was, tapped into. I'm not sure. But I do know that this
Bible, like there is within that world. I think there are people to let you know, if not a character, like if not exactly what happens in the movies, but a character path or a hit, whatever is relevant to what you're writing about. Yeah.
This came out 2016 originally. Okay. And I think this paperback version, it says 2017, and Force Awakens was 2015. And then what we learn later about Luke and Ben when they're training and how everything goes to shit, that happens in later movies. But the important thing is that framework was still there. My theory is right now, Han and Leia are together. At some point in the future, and it's probably not going to be in this book, when everything goes bad with Ben, that's when they break up. Because Ben being lost to the dark side or Snoke is going to be that painful thing where Han is going to retreat back to being a smuggler. He can't look at Leia. Leia can't look at Han. They remind each other of their son who they lost and they didn't fight hard enough for. That's my theory. And it's awesome and heartbreaking and I love it. And Ben Solo, Kylo Ren is one of my favorite characters who I think is so compelling for that reason. Yeah. So
also the name Ben, I just realized Ben, did that have anything to do with Obi-Wan's alias? It did.
Yes, Ben Kenobi. Yes, of course.
But like Han didn't really spend
Right?
too much time.
And neither did Leia. But you know what I like is in this book we talk about how
It's very
Leia
for them.
But
it's
they
very-
never knew him as Ben. They only knew him as Obi-Wan, and
Sure.
Luke had known him as old Ben the whole time.
and they knew him for Han Solo knew him for a second before he was killed by Darth Vader. But in this book, the character of Leia, she talks about how Han Solo cared so much about Luke and
Yes.
took him in under his wing. And I'm like, how have I never considered that? That's so
Brother.
true.
Yeah.
It's so true. And I think that the naming of their son to be Ben is just a gift for Luke. It's just for Luke to be like, because by that point, Luke and Leia had realized that they're siblings, because this is after Return of the Jedi, that by that point, they had been fighting in the rebellion for years. By that point, do you know what I mean? By that point, it becomes this trio where Han and Leia love each other. Luke is there. Yeah.
And they're all so young, and they're all coming from just different kinds of trauma and having to survive and all of these different places. And it's sort of like a very juvenile way to think of it, but like camp, like summer camp, but in a war, or like tech week when you're a theater kid or whatever. Like when you're young and you spend all this time together.
Yeah.
There's probably another analogy that's less fucking dorky, but
Tech camp?
no, not tech camp. I did go to theater. I did go to and then teach a theater camp, but that's a story for another day. But the idea that being young and thrown into like just you're together nonstop and sort of on your own for the first time is again a very juvenile way to put it. But I think that like sort of bonding where even if it's a short amount of time, you saved each other, you found each other, you learned about each other, you learned about yourself through them learning you. Like I just think their arc in the original trilogy is so powerful because they and we as the audience get to know them through them getting to know each other. But let's get into the book.
Where's R2 in this book? There's a lot of C3. Where's R2?
He's with Luke.
He's with Luke.
Remember?
That's right.
In the Force Awakens flashbacks, when the temple falls, it's that robotic hand that comes up to touch. They've thought of it all. I also
not be Lost 2.0. They did not think of it all.
Well, I also want to before we do jump into the book, I just want to very quickly, first of all, very nice comment from Jimmy Sprinkles, who says, "You explaining about canon is now canon, Hector." Thank you very much, Jimmy. But I wanted to, between the three of us, really quickly talk about where we are with Star Wars stuff now, like extra stuff, in terms of this is not the first new book that I've read. I've read a couple, but I actually, I bought a bunch of them, and this was one that I bought, which is why I have the physical version, but it was sitting on my shelf and I hadn't read it yet. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to get to it. So I've also only read a few of the older canon stuff. I read when I was younger a Han Solo book that I adored, which I still have, and I still consider something that I like more than the Han Solo movie, which was fine. And then I also read the first book in the Thrawn trilogy, but I read that as an adult like a few months ago, and I'm like, I didn't love it, and that's a real bummer because it was something that when it came out, it changed the game in a way. So just real quick before we dive in, I am a huge fan of all of the extra stuff. And again, of Disney kind of really putting their foot down and being like, no, now going forward, we're going to try to consider this as canon as much as we can. Yeah. And because it's really kind of a smaller list than it was, before Disney bought it, it does feel kind of manageable. I love the comic books. I love, even if there's books that I've read that I didn't love.
There are a lot more now. I feel like there are so many.
Yes, there are. And then they also do kids' books. Yeah.
I feel like a timeline of novels to start.
Yeah, I can get that to you. There's a wiki on that, and it's awesome. Yeah. Wikipedia, they're all over it.
I think this is another thing that I've been meaning to. You can't see it right now, but my setup is propped on the Dark Crystal board game. But when Dark Crystal Age of Resistance came out, Not only did I name my baby son Cat after a character, but they had a whole timeline. Hup, a little spoon. He's a paladin, but they had this whole timeline because it's a prequel thousands of years before the original movie, and it showed kind of just, and I haven't dug into it because I've been listening to a lot of thrillers, but I need that for Star Wars because I would really like to and I need to do this with Clone Wars and Rebels. I'm bad. I haven't watched either.
And here's the other thing I want to say.
Full order, right?
Yes, I am 1000% in the same boat as you, Rachel. And I found this timeline and I've kind of been obsessed with it and I've been slowly making my way. But what I was going to say is this. I feel that the perfect viewing order for Star Wars is to do the
write an article for Nerdist.
I might, but my take is this: to watch the core 9 movies first in theatrical release order.
Yes.
So you go 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9. And then once you do those 9 core movies, and this is really what I'm thinking in terms of like even how to share it with like kids. I'm not a parent, but this is my theory. I would love some feedback on this. Right? Show the kids these 9 movies first, and then go back to the beginning chronologically. And even before you watch episode 1, read every book and comic book that's canon and watch every TV show that's canon in order. So
okay, now that the kids are 29,
I mean, it seems like it would take a long time, but it's kind of, and I know we've talked about this before on Alpha
really
Book Club.
So
it's kind of, it's like my fantasy to at some
18 books ahead of my year schedule because I don't sleep and I
exactly. It seems like a lot. But in the past few months before Disney Plus got the new season, I did watch all of Clone Wars in chronological order. You know
I am doing that, but I'm only up to season. Oh, I don't even think I've finished season 1 yet because there's like 20 something in the first season and then it drops back.
It's worth it. And I think that all of the extra material, the books, the comic books, and the TV shows obviously enrich the world. And to do that in order, can you imagine showing a kid the 9 movies and then going back and being like, here's a bunch of cool stuff. Here's the Clone Wars cartoon show. Here's the movie Rogue One. And it ends right before A New Hope. Let's rewatch A New Hope.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
With all that information. Yeah. That's a big ask. There's a lot out there.
I mean, this is Nerdist, Geekbomb, Geek and Sundry, all of us together, like diving into lore and history and like how things connect is like my favorite. That's why I loved, Lost is one of those, but yeah. Maude, how do you feel about getting into canon? And chat, let us know as well.
Yeah. So when the Force Awakens was, I think, about to be announced from 2014, I started hosting a Star Wars podcast. So I would be all over the news from that. And then I hosted a second one. And then with that, we would review all the canon comic books and books. So I was reading as fast as I could.
Pre-Force Awakens canon or post? Like new canon or old canon?
No. Legends were expanded universe. No, yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Everything that was getting released, I was consuming.
Got it.
Apart from children's books, coloring books, like all that kind of stuff. But if it was a comic book, if it was an actual novel, and all of that kind of stuff. So I read Lords of the Sith by Paul S. Kemp, which I really liked. Again, that was on Audible, and that's when I was like, oh my gosh, they've got access to all of the Lucas films and like all the LucasArts soundboards.
Text chain after the ones that you liked, so I can.
Yeah, because some of them are a bit tough. There's this one here, which I do not recommend. That's Thrawn. There you are. Heir to the Jedi by Kevin Hahn. Go back. Yeah, I didn't finish that one. It was tacky. And Paul S. Kemp does a really good job about it, but he brings the action, and I really like the dynamic that he has between Palpatine and Vader, and how you realize the lack of power that Vader really has, and that he's just a puppet. Like he's just that was really, really cool to see unfold, because when I was a kid watching the movies, Vader was the be all end all. He was the top of the tier bad guy. He was the numero uno. And then now it's just like, no. He was
He's middle management.
He was sent off to do things. And there's a couple of times where he didn't want to do something, or he like felt wrong or whatever it was, but because he was ordered to do it, he had to execute it. And that was very much president and military kind of dynamic on that front, which I thought was really interesting. Lost Stars by Claudia Gray is my favorite Star Wars canon book. It tells a story of two pilots. Sorry?
It's romantic.
It is. So it's kind of like the Romeo and Juliet in the Star Wars universe, where two kids from the same planet go through the Empire system. So when I would do the podcasts, a lot of questions that we would ask people are, what would you like to see like focused on? Because we have so much information out there. There's a lot of worlds, there's a lot of characters. What would you like to focus on? And the big one that I always had was like, how do you become one of these faceless people in this giant corporation? Like, you obviously get the job. And so this kind of shows these two pilots that go up into the system to become TIE pilots. And one of them is so loyal to the Empire and is doing really well and is like eye on the prize, questions only sometimes why an entire planet had to be destroyed.
Yeah.
So it was like that kind of like, they obviously know what's going on. I'm working for them. Therefore, like, this feels a bit weird. And then that was the catalyst point for the guy to be like, fuck this. Like, this is a tyrannical, like, awful thing. So many people have died. I can't fight for these people anymore. So he defects. And it's seeing their relationship, because they are best friends. And then that relationship goes even further when they realize that they are in love.
That's
and
my favorite.
She will not, like, her unwavering loyalty, he can't get through to her. Whereas she can only see him as a traitor to the thing that they fought for. So it's a really, really well-written book. It
feels very, like, in terms of gender dynamics, you would assume that those roles would be reversed, which I find really fascinating. And I think the chat definitely agrees. David Nichols Jr. says, I like the idea that all the legends is what regular people who live in the Star Wars canon universe think of as true sometimes. Ties in with the themes of the new trilogy very well. Tim and Daisy said, yeah, lore. You're right, Tim and Daisy. I've been watching Clone Wars and Rebels, finished Rebels on season 5 or 6 of Clone Wars. Miss Necromancer says, shift supervisor Darth Vader.
Yeah.
To Ray Slitherclaw.
I also, another thing that I really wanted to see expanded is, like, because this was a pitch that everyone was always saying, what book do you want to see? And my answer would also be, I mean, Old Republic, blah, blah, blah. But I was like, Leia killed basically the head of a crime family. Like, they have been running and ruling, like, the Hutts for generations, have so many districts and planets that they are in control of. And she has toppled that, the system and the order there. And I wanted to know what the repercussions were for that, because it was disgusted. So when I was listening to this, I was like, there it is. That's what I wanted to know. I wanted to know of the consequence of that action, because it would have had catastrophic effects throughout the galaxy. So then that was my segue to bring us back into this. Let's talk about the characters.
Nicely done.
No, I think it's what I want from future Star Wars, and what I would like if they let Rian Johnson make his Star Wars, which they should. Please, please let him make it. Don't listen to the mean boys. It made a lot of money. So, but is to explore other genres, to explore those smaller moments. And it's sort of like adventure the West way. Like, I just love the sort of machinations, I know in the prequels, not necessarily executed in the right way, of why war happens and what is happening behind the scenes. But I feel like we talked internally about what book we wanted to read next. We were like, let's read something fun. We loved the last two, and it is fun. Not to say that none of it, that
we've been very challenged, but it is a very challenging time.
But yet this book is extremely relevant to today. It's so, but I mean, I'm very excited because, you know, it's not we don't want fluff. We just want to enjoy what we're reading and try different things. But when I was listening to it, I was like, artifacts, Empire artifacts.
Yep. Even more relevant
populist
today.
And centrists, and how anyone can
And populists, like even the name I love.
Yeah.
use their power for good or not use it enough. I mean, a little shook in terms of American democracy right now. But
Yep.
let's.
But I want to draw some parallels, because the last time that I have explored this much political banter, where it really focuses on the system in terms of of the political structure, the last time we really saw that was episode 1 with the Trade Federation. And it was written in such a void way, void of empathy, void of purpose. Like, they were just trying to say that it was a position of power, blah, 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 blah. But oh my gosh, even watching that back now, it's like, this is so not how to talk about politics. Like, I am tuning out. This is like, I mean, you have incredibly racist aliens, like all of this kind of stuff. But reading this and seeing both sides presented and neither being right and wrong, like both were right and both were wrong. And I kind of loved having that discussion. And I truly believe it's because Claudia Gray writes from an emotional point of view. She's not presenting facts. She's presenting the facts and then the feelings that come from it.
From a certain point of view.
From a certain point of view. But the fact that you're getting both views and you're understanding where she's coming from and why she has all this information and why this is so important to her, but then another argument being presented to her and her bias getting in the way, and she's so kind of tunnel visioned on what she's experienced, but then also frustrated that someone's coasting through without having experienced it and not really understanding the gravity of what they're saying. I really liked how they spoke about their political viewpoints. And I think that that is almost inspirational for people to present their arguments and actually have a conversation where you can not point blank disagree with everything, but then try to find a common ground moving forward.
And seeing that there can be nuance, and I don't know that that's possible in our current system, but I think I agree, and I think that it growing up, my dad's he's a labor lawyer, but he was very into Marx growing up, Democratic. He's always like, I was a democratic socialist before everyone knew who Bernie was, which is his claim to fame. But we would talk a lot about socialism and democratic socialism and how there are a lot, and capitalism and all of these different ways to unify society that in theory make sense. But it's humans or people, when you have aliens involved, that have to make sure that that happens, that have to get into that position of power to enact it. And unfortunately, human nature, not always so great. And it ends up, and I think the idea that as soon as the book introduces, as we're diving into it, Leia is a senator. She is of the populist movement, which is essentially planets with their own cultures and laws should be able to govern themselves. Centrists, a little bit more pro-military, a little bit pro
tyranny.
Tyranny. But and so you're coming at it from from Leia's perspective, which you totally understand, which is that people I knew died. My entire planet was blown up. My childhood, my life, everything. I learned who my father was. Like all of this, we all know what happened. And she is coming from an understandable perspective of, no, I don't want anyone to have any kind of power like that. I've seen absolute power corrupts. You can't trust anyone. But she's also super frustrated with her own party, the populists, because it feels like, well, where is the line if you're just focusing on yourself and there's another planet or another system or of people who need your help? And it's so, I think having two sides, much like the Force, bringing balance, we're talking about balance, there should be a middle ground. There should be a United Nations of the Republic, but it's this, it didn't turn out this way in Rise of Skywalker, but I think the Jedi, from my point of view, the Jedi are too dogmatic.
They're cultists.
The Sith are too chaotic, and you need both elements of that. And I think
Ray all day
introduces the political system in that way too, of you do need to be able to be a little more flexible and listen to each other and maybe get involved when it makes sense, but don't, collect space Nazi memorabilia.
I want to bring that up because not only does that element make this book more relevant today than when the book was first published, but I have a question to everybody into the chat. Is the plot thing of the Senator Ransom Casturfo, who's a very interesting character, and I think is somebody who, by the time we get to the section where we're in right now, where we finish chapter 8, I think he's very likable. I think that he's somebody who
he's a pompous git at the start, but you weren't supposed to like him because you were supposed to have people
until to save her, and he's like, oh shit.
He can be heroic, and as we're describing, when they actually get into a discussion about their ideologies, he's right but wrong, Leia's right but wrong. There's a lot of middle ground, and it is very inspirational. My question is this: do you think that if Claudia Gray wrote this book today, that she would have this same character be hanging on to Empire memorabilia, knowing that it would cause such a connection for the reader between people who we have today who defend the Confederacy of the United States and its memorabilia? Or do you think that Casturfo, because I've never read this, is going to end up being, because as soon as we are introduced to him in his office, and we did see memorabilia from the Empire, and he said, oh, it's just historical, I immediately went, this guy is a fascist in training. This guy doesn't care about history. He actually is admiring what the Empire did, and he's going to be somebody who believes in what Palpatine did and how he was, and he's a fascist in training.
Symbolism. Yes.
So
I think this is a necessary moment, and I think the fact that it's happening now is a very good thing. Like I mentioned earlier, Claudia Gray presents both sides of the argument, but then showcases the feelings that are associated with them. And in that particular moment, Casturfo had very limited feelings. He was nonchalant about it. He wasn't really defensive of it. It was a little bit matter of fact for him. I wasn't there.
Like action figures.
Yeah, he's like, I wasn't really there, but I kind of, know the Empire, and I remember hearing the stories, and it is what it is. But then you see a visceral reaction from Leia. It is like being hit in the gut. She's probably perspiring in this moment. She's going through so much trauma. And for him to be so detached in that moment, and for her to have that sort of reaction, it shows both sides. And when it's like, well, it means nothing to me, it doesn't mean that it means nothing to everyone else. It can mean a lot. And I really liked that association of the trauma there, because Leia is showing, and she gets so reactive about it, and she's going, what are you doing? And because he was dismissive of her trauma, A, unlikable, but B, he wasn't actually experiencing the gravity of the situation. And I think from that moment, I didn't necessarily see him as a fascist in training. I saw him as someone who was uneducated. I saw him as super green. Yeah. And he, the modern day equivalent is the 15-year-old kid who kind of gets swept up in the right a little bit online. Yep. And he's just a little bit conditioned, and people told him it was a good thing. So him celebrating it with his people is his normal. But then he's such
a slippery. I think she would probably, I don't want to speak for her, but I think that it's actually very spot on that he is a likable character who is not indoctrinated yet. And maybe he doesn't become indoctrinated, but he is a ripe for the picking. He is an angry teenager on 4chan. I'm not trying to be reductive, but like there are many types of ways for horrible people or movements to prey on people, and there were a lot of normal people in Nazi Germany.
Yep.
And it happens slowly until it's happening. There are many quotes and articles and books and museums and essays about it, where if you are not careful, and if you follow the status quo, and if you don't have that kind of empathy, and you think about things in that abstract, it could be, I mean, I don't understand it, but it could be easy depending on your background, depending on your level of knowledge and how you were raised, to get swept up in that and become, like you were saying in Lost Stars, it's a slow burn. And that could be on a huge political level. It could be on a personal level. People are always like, how did someone stay with this person that was clearly abusive? And it's like, well, it didn't happen overnight. That's a lot, you know.
That is exactly the point that you're saying. These people don't wake up and they're like, Trump is God and death to all, you know, other races. It's a slow burn, and it has to start somewhere. And this Costofo character, he's starting. He's new into this kind of journey, and he's being kind of swayed in that direction. And because Leia is a lot further down, she's kind of like recognizing this and is needing to have the conversation and bring awareness. But I just don't think Costofo knows enough, and he kind of admits it. But I think that, you know, what I'm really appreciating is these characters who are very left and very right and disagreeing, and their fundamentals do not align and they cannot agree, and that argument is rife, seeing better qualities in the others over time. Understanding that Ransom, even though, like, don't tag anyone, don't put a tracking device on, because that's an absolute, like, obliteration of someone's privacy and rights, whatever. But the fact that he stepped in and was willing to kind of like, whoa, what are you doing? We're in a gnarly situation. I'm going to risk my life to help you. And she kind of goes, oh, he's actually not like
gonna save the day. And like that, I also like that. I think that's the first time we get his perspective. So we're seeing him as how Leia sees him. And obviously, like, I don't even think I would be able to reconcile with having a bunch of space Nazi memorabilia in your home and inviting the senator princess whose entire family, like, just, well, I guess he didn't invite her, but still, just, but we get his perspective when he's like, I was worried about her and I put a tracker on her and I did all the right things. And then he realizes it was a sting he wasn't included on. He's like, well, shit.
Yeah.
And I do like that he kind of figures out how to bounce back. Miss Necromancer said in the Discord that Ransom reminds me of Rolf in The Sound of Music for this very reason. He's older than that character, but his youthful ideals are very parallel. Spoiler alert, Ralph.
Yeah.
Becomes a Nazi. Not good.
Yeah. I think that's a really good analogy. I mean, that's
it's such a good one. And
I will say something that sets him apart though, like, and he already has shown a saving grace where it's like, I'm not agreeing with this guy, rubs me the wrong way, pompous git, you know, has those old school chivalry where it's like, you can't see her as an equal and has to rescue her, blah, 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 blah. But when they had their big boof and they really went head to head and had a massive argument, and Leia, like, was vulnerable and quite, you know, emotional to him, even though he said she was overreacting. Don't ever do that. It is a normal reaction. They are just reacting. He gave the next day, after he was able to calm down, he gave a very sincere apology where he admitted what he had done was wrong, and he learnt and listened to what she had said, and he allowed room to be wrong and to grow and change. And that is a quality.
That was what I liked. And she almost was thinking to herself, I should introduce him to my populist pals so we can bridge this gap, because he's willing to listen. I think, and I think that's something we can relate to on obviously a political level, but also like a fandom level. Sometimes I'll try to engage with someone online and it rarely ever works out, but I still try sometimes if they seem like they might not just be in bad faith. And it has happened before, but saying it where it's like, hey, you may not understand my perspective. Here's what it is. It doesn't mean it's yours.
Yeah.
But the feelings are very real and genuine.
You know what it reminded me of, that sequence and the way that Leia started to sort of think about him reminded me of when Carrie Fisher and Admiral Holdo, played by the amazing Laura Dern in Star Wars: The Last Jedi, like knocked out Poe Dameron, and as he's being carried in the thing, they look to each other and they're like, I like him, me too. Even though he had broken the rules and was going behind their back and almost staged he almost staged a coup.
Yeah.
They still recognized in him he's trying to be a hero, and he is doing this for the right reasons, even if he is misinformed or doesn't have all the information. And
they taught him, and
Yep.
there was such a debate over that too. And I remember even with friends of mine who are dudes and very feminist and awesome allies and supportive, and just
they were like, she should have told him.
Not even that, but just like, not quite understanding. And the moment that Poe, and I love Poe in many ways.
Me too.
Beautiful man and also just lovely, and a hero. But as soon as he walked up to Holdo, and tried to kind of tell her what to do, and was a scoundrel, which I also love. As soon as that happened, I was like, she doesn't owe you anything. She doesn't have to tell you shit. She's an admiral. She's replacing a king, a squid.
Squid.
I was really upset when that happened. But I didn't
even notice it did happen. It was like that.
Because that's what war is like. That's what I told myself.
Okay, that's a good way to sleep at night. Yeah.
And listen, for all of the failings,
the word that Admiral Akbar is gone. They could have said more, but it's fine.
For all of the, by the way, how great was that little cameo in this book where old ass Admiral Akbar is walking around with a cane and Leia's like, I want to go talk to him. That's my friend. And he's like pushing 80. But what's so great about this and other things like it is that for all of the failings of the new Star Wars movies, which I see a lot of the discourse online is about their failings.
No, but there's so many good parts and good characters.
Yes, but I feel like, yes, the prequels are kind of a different animal, and the people who ignore those movies' failings just to prop them up, I'm like, yeah, I think you're doing that in bad faith. I don't think that's an accurate, fair thing.
They're bad.
The original,
I love them.
Sure, the original Star Wars movies, the three that everybody holds up to be perfect and many times without flaws and so immaculately planned and everything, I think honestly have as many failings and things that fall through the cracks as the new movies, for better and worse. Like both of these sets of movies did stuff without planning them fully through, and you can kind of tell and you can kind of see the cracks. I mean, when we read this and like Maude was saying, that you get to actually see Leia actually process her killing Jabba the Hutt, which I'm like, the original movie never talked about.
No.
All it does is enhance the original movie. And I feel like the new movies, even though we got to see Admiral Akbar die like this off screen and it was so quick, I feel as though there has to be some comic book or some book out there right now somewhere that actually kind of goes over it and will make it better.
I was just happy we got him in The Force Awakens, and I literally screamed out loud in the screening. I did not mean to. I thought it was an inside thought. I screamed, "It's a trap." in a press screening.
And according to this, he would have been 90 in The Force Awakens or something. Like, that's impressive.
I also want to talk about, oh my God, Anthony Carboni. Love
that. Hey, buddy.
Akbar cameo. Thanks for coming, bud. I also love that we get some like youngin characters in this, and I want some of the books that I read in the prequel era books that I read, one of which involves a Yoda impersonator. I just remembered when we were Googling it before the show. Yoda Dark Rendezvous. It's in between episodes 2 and 3. Yoda and Dooku, a little situation. There's basically a Yoda impersonator who's used as a decoy.
Aha.
But
was it Yaddle? Because that's the only way that will make sense, is if it was the female Yoda.
Nope. Not Yaddle. Do love Yaddle though.
Maybe it was a Twi'lek of shorter stature.
But I love getting new characters outside of
I thought I was pretty PC about that, but I mean the coloring and the skin
No, Jesus. Cats. Things are have you guys ever seen Nightmare on Elm Street?
No.
That's what he's doing. No, but I like also the addition of new characters, including who I'm thinking of is Tom Hiddleston.
Casterfo.
Yeah.
I am picturing, and I showed Lee this, I don't know if anyone's played Fire Emblem Three Houses, but Sylvian in that is giving me big time ransom vibes. And also, and this is going out to all my Lost Stars readers, because we actually covered it on Geekbomb Book Club. So a lot of my long times, we've all been through it. Only one chat, but had a lot to say. But Nash Windrider, he is another one who was on the in the Empire fleet as a pilot, and he was from Alderaan. And this was I don't want to spoil it.
Don't spoil it. Don't spoil it.
Yeah. But he was also quite well off, and he was like on a higher sort of like echelon. He was quite pompous. So I got Nash vibes. Anyone in the chat? You let me know.
That's pretty good. You know what? Oh, you know who I'm picturing as Casterfo, and I probably shouldn't be, but because they described him in this way, at least sounding this way, I'm picturing like a young, hot Moff Tarkin. Like I'm picturing like a young Grand Admiral.
Is there such a thing?
I mean, yeah, in my mind, yeah.
A hot Tarkin?
Yeah, those cheekbones.
You may fire and brother.
Yeah, in more ways than one. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, you leave those torpedoes.
Just thinking alone. It's Peter Cushing. There is young hot Peter Cushing. In Universal Monsters movies, I will find. I mean, not hot, but like scary hot.
No, he's not.
No, there's like. Oh God, sorry, I pressed the wrong button.
Are you looking up pictures of young Peter Cushing?
No.
Did we just swap? If you changed that, hold on 3 seconds.
I accidentally clicked stop.
Yeah, you did. You swapped. Okay, that's cool. So if you're watching this, swap Rachel and Hector's name. That's all. I'm still the same though. I'm the captain now.
I just clicked it wrongly. I want to keep talking about the book, but I also just want to say one thing, which is that as much as I love Peter Cushing and Moff Tarkin, they should have given all of the CG Moff Tarkin. He
looks like Tom Hiddleston.
He could get it.
Exactly. Tom Hiddleston, but should have given all of the CG Moff Tarkin moments in Rogue One to Ben Mendelsohn and his cape.
Mendo.
The love of Mendo. Right. I also want to talk about not just the audiobook, but we're getting into the underbelly of post original trilogy, pre-sequel trilogy.
Whoa, this is young Christopher Lee, by the way. What the F? That's
really hot AF.
He can do coup.
I'm so sorry that I said
no pigs.
I hate it. No, but I really like that in Star Wars, especially in the new sequel trilogy, whatever it's called. A lot of people got upset in The Last Jedi when they go to Canto Bight.
Yes. Oh, we spoke about that, Hector.
Mm-hmm.
You defended Canto Bight, and I just was like, all you had to do was just give Justin Theroux more screen time.
That's fair.
Not even a big ask. Not even a big ask, you know?
I think that looking at war profiteering as a concept, I wish there were. I think my main critique of The Last Jedi, which is a teeny tiny one, is that it should have been 2 movies. Just give him 2 of them. Because there are so many ideas that I think are worth exploring. And one of them is, what is the cost of this type of a war, whether you're on the side of the rebels or the Empire or the First Order.
Mm-hmm.
And what I like about this is they're in the Senate. I love the throwaway line-ish about we gave up the weird Senate bubbles because they made people seem so self-important. I was like, but that's one of the greatest prequel scenes is when they're like, just fighting through.
Because we've got another little bit of extra time here, and maybe I'll go into it more on the after show, but I just want to let you guys know, and I'm not sure if I brought it up before, but it's worth mentioning. I actually read part of the script that Rian Johnson wrote for The Last Jedi before it got 19 edits on it. And there was an amazing Leia story that involved the Knights of Ren, where she had to pick up a saber to defend herself. So I will tell you what went down in that scene in the after show. Remind me. But when you say that we should have had two
Can I
movies,
resubscribe to Geekbomb? Just that's a well, and I
Amazing.
know
and I
that
wasn't allowed to say anything. I got to read it on an iPad and I was just like, all right, this is what I want. And then even though I really liked The Last Jedi, I was really hoping to see that dynamic. And I think I've made it very clear I didn't like Kylo Ren as an antagonist at all. And I thought if he was flanked with the Knights of Ren, that would have been a powerful entity, because it would have been like what we saw in Return of the Jedi with all the bounty hunters going after Han. You would have had that level of suspense in The Last Jedi. So that's like one of the things I'm a little bit bummed about, but I'll tell you, yeah, what the scene was as I recall it. Yeah.
God, I don't know how to refocus my brain after that, but
Well done.
no, I think I like that this, and what I would like to see in in any kind of future Star Wars story is these personal moments and what it means, or societal moments, what it means to different groups. And so the premise of Leia's whole mission is this idea that, you know, after a crime syndicate is taken out, guess what? People are going to fill that void. And you can't just pretend like, okay, we're done. I mean, in terms of American politics, we could probably have like a week-long conversation about that, and removing leadership in some way and then being like, bye. But the fact that she views this as a way to sort of make her government work worthwhile, something she can do and kind of do on her own, and she's immediately thwarted by her ultimate foil, this dude who would have been like prime for the Empire picking, and he's just a little baby who's like, oh cool, the Empire, they could have gotten some things right, it wasn't that bad, right? And it's one generation away, which
What is he, like 32 and she's 49?
she's in her late 40s. And I like that this sort of side mission is about more personal or smaller scale political intrigue. And also that Han and Leia talk about going on an adventure and maybe having like space smooches.
I thought a really relatable moment for that with Leia is that she is 49. She's been a part of the, she's been royalty and she's grown up through that. But since she was like as a child, she was sitting in
these meetings and stuff.
Exactly. So she was learning about democracy. She was learning about sort of like her for so long. And yet at 49, she's just like, what's the point? And I felt that. I felt someone who had worked so hard and was trying to do so much, but at the end of the day, they still felt like just one person trying to do everything. But unless you have a system that is, in sync and really trying to push for change, and if there weren't like 19,000 stipulations that we had to jump through to try and actually make one thing happen, her going, I want to retire, peace out, and I actually want to spend some quality time with the man that I love doing very little. I was like, I get that. Like, sign me up. Actually, how do you get a husband like Han first? Like, that's what I really want to know. No, I'm saying, Hans, you know what to do. Use that hologram.
Maybe don't marry him, but smooch him a lot. That would be
I'll take it.
Like I said, guys, my theory is I think that their marriage is actually pretty rock solid, even now when they're not physically in the same place. Wait until Ben turns to the dark side. That's when things start to go bad.
But Leia is already being sort of teased and provoked with Han's reputation, like once a smuggler, always a smuggler, and her own biases.
Yep.
And
I kind of like Bryn Riven when he pointed that out. He goes, oh, I'm sorry. Like, I'm going to address all the shit that he did. And she was like blown away, going, no one has ever been so forward and not dancing around that. But he blasted her with it. But the fact that he also backed it up by saying, what, just because he joined the rebellion, everything he did before just automatically disappears. And I was like, when can change actually come to effect? When, like, is a person who you were always become the person who you are? I don't know. I thought that was a really
trying to survive. If you're trying to get revenge, like where is the line?
Real quick, Anthony Carboni, our buddy Anthony in the chat says, Han Solo, good husband, said no one ever. I disagree. I think that at this point he can be.
I don't see them as a team. Sorry. I see him as always prioritizing him. I saw her as the prize, but then
they're both too friggin' stubborn.
Yeah, I don't see them as a team at all.
All the time. But
they're a team of individuals. They are a team of individuals. That's what they're a team.
And the fact that she was fantasizing about spending 3 months together with him on the ship, and his response was, we're going to get sick of each other. I was like,
he's insecure. He's insecure, clearly.
Grown-ass man.
Yeah. Yep. You know what I want to point out that I think is really awesome? Again, in all of the flaws of the original movies that we love so much, like one of the flaws being Carrie Fisher in A New Hope was very young. And at one point, it seemed like she had a British accent. Nobody knew what the hell. Like, it's like, why is she speaking in a British accent? Page 32 of this book, page 32, has her talking about Casturfo like he has an aristocratic accent that Grand Moff Tarkin had spoken. And she goes, the one so many senior Imperial officers affected, the one she'd mocked when she and Tarkin last stood face to face.
She explained it. I was wondering what that line of dialogue was, because I was like, I don't remember any mocking. She wasn't mocking. It was bad.
I love it.
Known it was your foul stench when I came aboard. Yeah.
That's funny.
He solved a plot hole. Like I'm not a big fan of the retroactive solving of plot hole that was just writing. But if you're gonna do it in that, like, just a subtle, beautiful dig. Beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we did a lot of talking about Star Wars overall. This happens with every
time. Yeah.
episode of a book. We get really excited about what we're talking about, but we're going to keep talking about specific plot points in the next episode. But even before then, we have an after show. But first, your homework. Finish chapter 16. Stop at chapter 17. This is on page 199 in your paperback copy, and we will tweet this out. And if you're me or Maude or Hector, we will text each other and say, where are we reading?
Stop at 17. Stop at 17.
For some reason, all the time.
You got to have two bookmarks, right? One where you're at and one where you're going to. That's the deal.
Guys,
that's the deal.
Okay.
Or you write it down and then you forget, and then you next change.
I've had to do that almost every week.
Come on, I felt like I was like, where are we reading? But after you finish your homework, or before, you can check out previous episodes of Nerdist Book Club on Nerdist and Geek and Sundry's YouTube or Geek and Sundry's Twitch. Please like and subscribe. Please also send us book recommendations.
We're on Goodreads.
We're on Goodreads. Send us books we should do on the show. But if you know us, which I hope you do, if you have specific recommendations for us, we like different things and similar things, send them to us. And Maude, where are we going right now? What's happening?
Yeah, look, straight after this, I'm going to drop a tweet out, but then we're going to head over to the Geekbombs after show, which happens on the book club call that exists in Geekbomb's Discord. Now, anyone can actually join the Discord, but to get access to the call area, you have to be subscribed. You have to back Geekbomb's Patreon. The lowest tier and higher will get access, just $5 a month is the minimum one, and you get a bunch of other perks as well.
Jedi original script.
Yeah, I'm going to chat about that. I didn't sign an NDA. Woo! So yeah, head over there. We'll talk about that. And I also really want to dissect Leia and Han's relationship, what they're like. why they work, why they didn't, all that kind of stuff. And we can actually talk about what went down in the first 8 chapters also, because we just get it over that one. But there you go, guys. Thank you so much. If you want to get involved, just head to patreon.com/geekbomb, sign up for that. And I'll see you over there on the Discord.
And we'll see you next week. May the force be with you. I couldn't think of anything funny, so I
Don't
just...
be a player, be a Leia.
Wait, can I get... Are we out? I'll bring my Akbar toys next
Go
week.
get your Akbar. Go get your Akbar toy.
No.
I also...